To our amazing viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, we'd love to hear, which part of the world are you joining us from? Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Storm. Dennis Bowers stood in the executive conference room of Holloway Industries, watching the Chicago skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. At 42, he'd built a reputation as the company's most reliable operations director, the guy who fixed problems nobody else could solve. 15 years of grinding, of late nights and weekend emergencies, had earned him respect from everyone except the people who mattered most at home. His phone buzzed. Another text from Marissa. Don't forget Isaac's science fair tonight. You promised. Dennis sighed, thumbs hovering over the screen. The Kellerman merger needed his attention. 3 months of negotiations hung by a thread, and Marshall Holloway, the CEO, had made it clear, close this deal, or the VP position goes to someone else. You look stressed, Dennis. Brad Witt appeared beside him, coffee in hand, that practiced smile never quite reaching his eyes. Brad had joined the company 8 months ago as CFO, riding in on credentials from a failed startup and family connections. More specifically, he was Marissa's cousin, a fact that had made Dennis's work life infinitely more complicated. Just focused, Dennis replied, keeping his voice neutral. Brad had a talent for turning casual conversations into corporate maneuvering. Marshall's been singing your praises about the Kellerman deal. Brad's tone dripped with something Dennis couldn't quite place. Must be nice, being the golden boy. Dennis noticed the edge beneath the compliment. Brad had been pushing his own acquisition strategy. Aggressive, risky, the kind of play that looked brilliant in boardrooms but crumbled under scrutiny. Marshall had sided with Dennis's conservative approach, and Brad hadn't taken it well. Hard work pays off, Dennis said simply. Brad's smile tightened. Family's important too, though? Marissa mentioned you've been missing a lot of Isaac's events. Kid's only 13 once. The comment landed like a punch. Dennis had missed Isaac's last 3 baseball games, his birthday dinner, and countless bedtimes. Marissa's disappointment had calcified into something harder, resentment. I'm balancing, Dennis said, though the words felt hollow. Sure you are. Brad clapped him on the shoulder with false camaraderie. Just remember, companies replace us in a heartbeat. Families forever. As Brad walked away, Dennis felt the familiar weight of guilt. He'd been chasing success for so long, he'd stopped noticing what it cost. His marriage had become a series of missed connections and tense silences. Marissa spent more time with her family than with him, and Brad's sudden presence in their lives, Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, had created an unsettling dynamic. Dennis checked his watch. If he left now, he might make the science fair. But his desk was buried in Kellerman contracts, and Marshall expected an update by morning. He texted Marissa, running late. Start without me. I'll try to make it. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. Dennis returned to his office, a corner space on the 14th floor that had taken him a decade to earn. The Kellerman files consumed his evening. By the time he looked up, it was past midnight. The science fair was long over. His phone showed 5 missed calls from Marissa. No voicemails. Dennis drove home through empty streets, practicing apologies that would never be enough. The house was dark when he arrived. Marissa's car sat in the driveway next to a vehicle he recognized, Brad's Mercedes. Inside, he found them in the living room. Marissa looked up from the couch, eyes red from crying. Brad sat beside her, hand on her shoulder in a gesture that was too familiar, too comfortable. Dennis, Marissa's voice was flat. We need to talk. It's late for visitors, Dennis said, looking at Brad. Brad came by after you missed Isaac's big night. Marissa stood, arms crossed. Again, our son won first place, Dennis. He kept looking for you in the crowd. Guilt twisted in Dennis's chest. Marissa, I'm sorry. The merger is more important than your family. We know. She shook her head. Brad thinks maybe we should consider counseling. Brad thinks. Dennis felt anger flash through him. Since when does your cousin have a vote in our marriage? Brad stood, hands raised in mock surrender. Just trying to help, Dennis. Someone needs to be there for them. The implication hung in the air like poison. Dennis's jaw clenched. I think you should leave. Marissa asked me to stay until you got home, Brad said smoothly. She was upset. Dennis looked at his wife, searching for the woman he'd married 16 years ago. She wouldn't meet his eyes. It's fine, Brad, Marissa finally said. Thank you for being here. Brad nodded. gave Dennis a look that might have been pity or triumph, and left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a verdict. "How long has he been coming over when I'm not home?" Dennis asked quietly. Marissa's eyes flashed. "He's family, Dennis. Unlike you lately. When's the last time you had dinner with your son? When's the last time you asked about my day?" She was right. Dennis had been so focused on climbing the ladder, he'd stopped noticing the ground falling away beneath him. "I'll do better," he said. "You always say that." Marissa headed for the stairs. Isaac left his trophy on the kitchen counter. "At least look at it before you go back to work." Dennis stood alone in the living room, the house silent except for the ticking of a clock that had been a wedding gift. He walked to the kitchen and found the trophy. First place, Advanced Robotics, Isaac Bowers. Pride and regret warred in his chest. His son had inherited his mind for systems and problem-solving. But where Dennis had channeled it into corporate success, Isaac built things, created things, found joy in the process rather than the outcome. Dennis pulled out his phone and sent a text to Marshall. "Need to take tomorrow morning off. Family commitment." The response came immediately. "Kellerman meeting is at 9 a.m. Be there." Dennis stared at the message, then at his son's trophy. For 15 years, he'd chosen work. One more time wouldn't matter, right? He texted back, "I'll be there." Upstairs, a door closed. The sound of his marriage ending, one missed moment at a time. Dennis didn't know it yet, but worse was coming. And when it did, the family he'd neglected would be the only thing standing between him and complete destruction. Chapter 2. The Trap Springs. The Kellerman meeting went perfectly. By noon, Dennis had signatures on contracts that would boost Holloway Industries' revenue by 40%. Marshall was ecstatic, already talking about Dennis's promotion to VP of Operations. Dennis returned to his office riding a wave of achievement that felt emptier than it should have. He'd texted Isaac an apology and promise of a celebration dinner. The response had been brief. "It's fine, Dad." 2 words that meant it wasn't fine at all. Dennis was reviewing quarterly projections when Marshall's assistant appeared at his door, face pale. "Mr. Holloway needs you in his office immediately. Security is with him." The bottom dropped out of Dennis's stomach. "Security? Just go now." Dennis walked through the office in a fog, aware of colleagues watching, whispering. Marshall's door was closed, unusual for mid-afternoon. Dennis knocked and entered. Marshall Holloway sat behind his massive oak desk, face grave. 2 security guards flanked him, Carl and Rodriguez, guys Dennis had shared coffee with 100 times. They wouldn't look at him. And there, leaning against the bookshelf with studied casualness, was Brad Witt. "Dennis," Marshall's voice was heavy. "We have a serious problem." "What's going on?" "This morning, during a routine security sweep, we found something in your office." Marshall nodded to Carl, who produced an evidence bag containing neat stacks of $100 bills. $50,000, hidden in your bottom desk drawer. Dennis's mind went blank. "That's not. I've never seen that money before." "Dennis." Brad stepped forward, tablet in hand, expression carefully neutral. "I've reviewed the security footage. You were the last person in your office yesterday at 11:47 p.m. The money wasn't there during the 6 p.m. sweep, but it appeared before the 7 a.m. check this morning." "This is insane," Dennis said, looking at Marshall. "You know me. 15 years, Marshall. Why would I?" "The Kellerman deal," Brad interjected softly. "You had complete access to their financial data. We're auditing now, but preliminary numbers show discrepancies." Dennis's blood ran cold. "You're saying I embezzled from Kellerman?" "We're not saying anything yet," Marshall said, but his tone had shifted. The warmth of this morning was gone. "But the money is real, Dennis. And the timing is suspicious." "This is a frame job," Dennis said, hearing desperation creep into his voice. "Check the cameras again. Someone planted that money." "I've checked every angle," Brad said, meeting Dennis's eyes. "No one entered your office except you." That's when Dennis saw it. The briefest flicker in Brad's expression. Something that might have been satisfaction, quickly masked by concern. "You," Dennis breathed. "You did this." Brad's eyebrows rose. "That's a serious accusation, Dennis. Especially given the evidence points to you." "Evidence you reviewed," Dennis said, turning to Marshall. "He has access to everything. Security systems, financial records. He could have." "Could have what?" Brad's voice remained calm, reasonable. "Framed you?" "Why would I do that, Dennis?" "Your family." The word landed like a slap. "Family." The cousin who'd been worming his way into Dennis's home, his marriage, his life. Marshall, please, Dennis said. You've known me for 15 years. Does this make sense? Marshall's expression was pained. Dennis, I want to believe you. But the board is already aware. With the amount of money involved and the Kellerman deal on the line. He stood. I have to call the police. The police? Dennis felt the world tilting. Marshall, wait. I'm sorry, Dennis. You're suspended effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Carl and Rodriguez moved forward, not quite touching him, but making their purpose clear. Dennis looked at Brad, who had the decency to appear sympathetic. I hope this gets cleared up, Brad said. For Marissa and Isaac's sake. The mention of his family made Dennis's hands curl into fists. Brad saw it and smiled. A quick flash that confirmed everything Dennis suspected. They'd escorted him halfway to the elevator when Rodriguez's radio crackled. Units responding to Holloway Industries, 14th floor. Suspect in custody. Stand by. The elevator opened to reveal two Chicago PD officers. Detective Vernon Dunlap, a weathered man in his 50s, held up a badge. Dennis Bowers? I need you to come with us downtown. We have questions about financial irregularities at your company. This is a mistake, Dennis said. Maybe so, Dunlap replied. But that's a conversation for the station. As they led him through the lobby, past co-workers and clients, Dennis saw phones rise to capture his humiliation. Tomorrow, he'd be headline news. Tonight, he'd be in a cell. The ride downtown passed in a blur. They processed him at the station. Fingerprints, mugshot, the works. In the interrogation room, Dunlap laid out the case. The money in his desk. Financial irregularities in the Kellerman accounts. Brad's testimony about Dennis's gambling problem. A complete fabrication that Marissa would apparently corroborate. I don't gamble, Dennis said. And those irregularities? Check who had access to modify the accounts. We are checking, Dunlap said. But right now, the evidence suggests you've been skimming funds and hiding cash. 50,000 is just what we found. If the Kellerman audit shows more. How much more? Could be looking at $250,000, maybe more. That's federal prison time, Mr. Bowers. They arrested him formally at 6 p.m. The bail hearing wouldn't be until morning. Dennis spent the night in a holding cell, mind racing through the trap Brad had set. The security footage, the planted money, the fabricated gambling story, all of it carefully orchestrated. But why? Professional jealousy wasn't enough to explain this level of malice. There had to be something more. Dennis thought about Brad's visits to his house, the hand on Marissa's shoulder, the way he'd inserted himself into their family. Was this about taking everything from Dennis? His career, his reputation, his family? The cell door clanged open at 7 a.m. A guard led him to a meeting room where Oscar Francis waited, a sharp-dressed lawyer in his 60s with kind eyes and a reputation for winning impossible cases. Mr. Bowers, I'm Oscar Francis. Your wife hired me. Dennis felt a flicker of hope. Marissa hired you. Actually, your son did. Called my office last night, very insistent. Said his father was innocent and needed the best lawyer in Chicago. Oscar smiled. The kid's got spine. Anyway, I reviewed the preliminary evidence. This is concerning. It's a frame job, Dennis said. Bradwitt, the CFO who's also your wife's cousin. Yes. I'm aware of the conflict. Oscar pulled out a notepad. Tell me everything. Dennis laid it all out. Brad's arrival at the company, the tension over the Kellerman deal, his presence at Dennis's house, the strange dynamic with Marissa. Oscar listened, taking notes, asking pointed questions. The security footage is the problem, Oscar said finally. If Brad's telling the truth, and only you access that office. Then he edited the footage, Dennis said. He's the CFO. He has administrative access to everything. Proving that will be difficult, but not impossible. Oscar stood. Your bail hearing is in an hour. I'll get you out. Then we start building your defense. But Dennis, I need to ask, how is your marriage? Really? Dennis hesitated. Rocky, I've been working too much. Marissa's been distant. Brad's been helpful. Helpful. Oscar's expression darkened. Mr. Bowers, in cases like this, we need to consider all angles. Is there any possibility your wife is involved in this frame job? The question hit Dennis like a physical blow. Marissa wouldn't, would she? But then he remembered her coldness, Brad's presence, the way she'd said Brad thinks, like his opinion mattered more than Dennis's. I don't know, Dennis admitted. I honestly don't know. Chapter 3. The counterplay begins. The bail hearing was brutal. The prosecutor painted Dennis as a desperate man with mounting debts, another fabrication, who'd stolen from his employer and endangered a major merger. Oscar argued his client's spotless record and community ties. The judge set bail at $200,000. Dennis didn't have that kind of liquid cash. Everything was tied up in investments and the house, which Marissa would need to access. As guards led him back to holding, Oscar squeezed his shoulder. I'll work on the bail. Your son is quite resourceful. 4 hours later, Dennis was released. Outside the courthouse, he found Isaac waiting with Oscar. His 13-year-old son looked older somehow, jaw set with determination that reminded Dennis of himself. Dad, Isaac said, and Dennis pulled him into a fierce hug. How did you? I liquidated your cryptocurrency portfolio, Isaac said matter-of-factly. The one you set up for my college fund. You taught me the passwords, remember? For emergencies. Dennis felt his throat tighten. Isaac, that was your future. Your freedom is my future, Isaac said. Mom doesn't know yet. She's been weird lately. They drove to Oscar's office in Oscar's Mercedes. Isaac sat in back, fingers flying over a laptop. Your son has been investigating, Oscar said. Tell him, Isaac. I hacked. Okay, accessed without permission. The home security system 2 months ago, Isaac said. I wanted to see if Mom was mad at you for missing my games. I've been recording everything since then. Dennis turned in his seat. Everything. Every conversation. Every visit from Brad. Isaac's young face was grim. Dad, there's something you need to see. At Oscar's office, they huddled around a laptop. Isaac pulled up footage from the Bowers' living room, dated 3 weeks ago. On screen, Marissa and Brad sat close on the couch. You deserve better. Brad's voice came through clearly. Dennis takes you for granted. You and Isaac both. He's trying, Marissa said, but she didn't pull away when Brad took her hand. Is he? Or is he just another corporate drone who chose ambition over family? Brad leaned closer. I can give you what he can't. Attention. Appreciation. Security. Brad, we're family. This is long overdue. Brad's voice dropped. I've watched you be unhappy for years, Marissa. Since before I took the CFO position. Since I first saw you at that family reunion 5 years ago. Dennis's stomach churned. 5 years ago, Brad hadn't even worked at Holloway Industries. You planned this, Marissa breathed on the recording. I created an opportunity, Brad corrected. The CFO position opened up. I applied. I got close to you both. And now, he stroked her cheek. Now I can offer you a fresh start. Dennis is going to fall, Marissa. The Kellerman deal has complications. When it all comes apart, you can divorce him, take everything, and we can be together. You're going to sabotage him? I'm going to reveal what he is, an obsessive workaholic who neglected his family for corporate glory. The money in his desk, the gambling debts, it's all carefully documented. By the time the investigation ends, you'll be the sympathetic wife who stood by too long. Marissa was quiet for a long moment. What about Isaac? Isaac will understand eventually. Kids are resilient. And I'll be a better father figure than Dennis ever was. The footage continued, but Oscar paused it. Dennis sat frozen, betrayal and rage warring in his chest. Mom knew, Isaac whispered. She knew he was going to frame you. Not just knew, Oscar said gently. The prosecutor mentioned gambling debts they claim Marissa reported. She's part of this, Dennis. I'm sorry. Dennis stood, walking to the window. Chicago sprawled below, indifferent to his pain. The woman he'd married, the mother of his son, had conspired to destroy him. There's more, Isaac said quietly. Show him the rest, Mr. Francis. Oscar pulled up financial records. I have a contact at Holloway Industries who ran a quiet audit. The Kellerman irregularities? They trace back to accounts Brad created. He's been skimming money for months, setting up the frame. The $50,000 in your desk was probably part of what he stole. He's embezzling and pinning it on me, Dennis said. Exactly. And if my theory is correct, he plans to use the chaos to position himself as the company's savior. Marshall retires. Brad becomes CEO. Marissa divorces you and gets half your assets, and they ride off into the sunset. Dennis turned from the window. The shock was fading, replaced by something colder, sharper. Brad had stolen his career, his reputation, and his family. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated Dennis's son. Isaac, Dennis said. How much of their conversations do you have recorded? Everything since I installed the system. Hours of footage. And it's admissible in court? Oscar nodded. With proper context, yes. It won't clear you immediately. We still need to prove Brad manipulated the company's systems. But it establishes conspiracy and motive. Dennis sat down, mind already working through scenarios. He'd spent 15 years solving complex operational problems. This was just another system to break down, analyze, and dismantle. We need more than recordings, Dennis said. We need proof of the digital manipulation. Security footage, financial trails, everything. Dad, Isaac said quietly. I might be able to help with that. Dennis looked at his son, brilliant, loyal, brave beyond his years. The boy he'd neglected was now his greatest ally. What are you thinking? Dennis asked. Isaac pulled up a schematic on his laptop. Holloway's security system runs on a private server. If I can access it remotely, I can pull raw footage files. The originals, before Brad edited them. That's illegal, Oscar said. So is framing someone for embezzlement, Isaac countered. Dennis felt pride surge through him. This was his son. This was what he'd almost lost. We can't ask you to break the law, Dennis said to Isaac. But if hypothetically someone with your skills wanted to help their father prove his innocence. Isaac smiled, the first real smile Dennis had seen in days. Hypothetically, that someone would need about 3 hours and a secure internet connection. My office is soundproof and encrypted, Oscar said. Hypothetically speaking. Dennis looked at his lawyer, then his son. For 15 years, he'd fought alone, climbing the corporate ladder while his family drifted away. Now, when everything had fallen apart, they were fighting for him. Post my bail was just the beginning, Dennis said to Isaac. You said you'd fix everything. Did you mean it? Every word, Dad. Then let's get to work. Dennis leaned forward. Brad and Marissa want to destroy me? They're about to learn what happens when you corner a man with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Oscar's smile was sharp. Now we're talking. But Dennis, we need to be smart. Brad has resources, connections, and your wife on his side. If we're going to take him down, we need to hit him from an angle he won't see coming. Leave that to me, Dennis said. Brad's mistake was thinking I'm just a corporate drone. He forgot what I did before Holloway Industries. Isaac looked up. What did you do, Dad? Dennis's expression turned cold. I fixed broken systems. And Bradwit just became my next project. Chapter 4, Digital Shadows. Isaac worked through the night in Oscar's office while Dennis watched his son's fingers dance across the keyboard with pride and terror. The kid was a natural hacker, something Dennis recognized because he'd once been the same, back in his 20s before corporate life had dulled those edges. The security server has decent firewalls, Isaac muttered, eyes locked on scrolling code. But they're commercial grade. Probably Brad's budget cuts. Can you get through? Oscar asked, nursing his fourth coffee. Already am. The trick is making it look like normal traffic. Isaac hit enter with a flourish. And we're in. Downloading the raw footage archive now. Dennis watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. How long? 30 minutes. Maybe 40. It's a lot of data. They waited in tense silence. Dennis used the time to think, to plan. Brad had spent months building this trap, falsifying records, manipulating security footage, poisoning Marissa against him. Dismantling it would require precision. Got it, Isaac finally said. Raw security files from the past 6 months. Oscar leaned over the laptop. Can you isolate the footage from Dennis's office? The night the money appeared. Isaac pulled up a video player, loading files from the server. They watched the screen show Dennis's empty office, timestamp reading 11:47 p.m., the time Brad claimed Dennis was last there. Now watch, Isaac said, fast-forwarding. At 2:17 a.m., the office door opened. Bradwit entered, looked directly at a camera, and waved. He's mocking us, Dennis breathed. He knew the footage would be erased. Not erased, Isaac corrected. Replaced. Watch what he does. Brad walked to Dennis's desk with a laptop. He plugged it into the security terminal hidden in the credenza, a system Dennis barely knew existed. On Brad's screen, visible in the reflection on the office window, was the security feed interface. He's uploading edited footage, Oscar said. The version that won't show him entering. Exactly. Isaac froze the frame. But he couldn't delete the original files from the main server. He just changed which ones the system displays. The raw data stays for backup purposes, minimum 1-year retention per company policy. They watched Brad plant the money in Dennis's desk, then leave. At 2:34 a.m., he returned with cleaning supplies and methodically wiped down every surface he'd touched. Professional, Oscar noted. He's done this before. Can we use this in court? Dennis asked. Yes, but there's a problem. Oscar's expression was grim. The footage was obtained illegally. Any defense attorney will get it thrown out as fruit of the poisonous tree. Dennis felt frustration rise. So we have proof, but can't use it. We can't use it directly, Oscar said. But now we know what to look for. Isaac, can you trace Brad's laptop? See what else he's been manipulating. I can try. Isaac pulled up network logs. His device has a unique signature. If I search for every time it's accessed the security system. He trailed off, eyes widening. Oh wow, what is it? Brad's been accessing the system remotely for 8 months. Almost daily. And look at the timestamps. Most of the access happens between 2 and 4 a.m. Dennis leaned closer. The pattern was clear. Brad had been systematically rewriting the company's digital history, creating gaps and inconsistencies that would point to Dennis as the culprit. He's not just framing you for this one incident, Oscar said slowly. He's building a case spanning months, making it look like you've been embezzling the whole time. The Kellerman irregularities, Dennis realized. He's been setting those up for months too. Isaac pulled up financial logs. The Kellerman accounts show transfers to offshore holdings. Small amounts at first, then larger. Total is around $300,000. $300,000, Oscar repeated. All allegedly stolen by you. But the transfers came from Brad's terminal, Isaac said. See? Each one has his laptop signature. Which we can't prove legally, Dennis said bitterly. Maybe we can. Oscar stood, pacing. Isaac accessed the security system. That's illegal. But what if Holloway Industries requested an independent IT audit? Completely legitimate, especially after allegations of embezzlement. The auditors would find the same evidence, legally. Marshall won't authorize that, Dennis said. Brad's in his ear. Marshall isn't the only board member. Oscar smiled. And I know someone who owes me a favor. Wade Hughes, he's on the board. Old friend from law school. Dennis remembered Wade. Old money, smart, and notoriously intolerant of corporate fraud. You think he'd push for an audit? If I explain that there's evidence of systematic manipulation? Absolutely. Wade hates being played. And if someone's been cooking the books at Holloway Industries, he'll want blood. Do it, Dennis said. But we need more than just the security footage and financial records. We need to know why Brad targeted me specifically. The CFO position, Isaac said. And Mom. It's more than that. Dennis pulled up his phone, scrolling through old emails. Brad joined the company 8 months ago, but he said he first saw Marissa 5 years ago, at a family reunion. So he's been planning this for years, Oscar said. That suggests obsession. Or desperation. Dennis found what he was looking for, Brad's application file, which he'd reviewed as part of the hiring committee. Look at his employment history. Startup CEO for 3 years, then nothing. Radio silence for 18 months before Holloway Industries. People take time off, Oscar said. Not ambitious people like Brad. Dennis pulled up LinkedIn, searching for Brad's previous company. WIT Technologies. Filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago. Investors lost everything. Isaac did a quick search. There's a lawsuit. Former investors sued Brad for fraud and mismanagement. It was settled out of court. Settled for how much? Dennis asked. Isaac dug deeper. $2.3 million. The number hung in the air. Oscar's eyes narrowed. That's why he needs the money. The settlement probably wiped him out. He's trying to recoup his losses. And he's using me as cover, Dennis said. Frame me for embezzlement. Steal from the company. Then position himself as the hero who discovered it. While stealing your wife and life in the process, Oscar added. Dennis felt the pieces clicking together. This wasn't just professional sabotage or romantic obsession. Brad was a desperate man trying to rebuild his life on the ruins of Dennis's. We need to find where the money's going, Dennis said. 300,000 from Kellerman, 50,000 planted in my desk. That's just what we know about. There could be more. I can trace the offshore accounts, Isaac offered. No. Dennis put a hand on his son's shoulder. You've done enough illegal activities for one night. We need to be smart from here on out. Your dad's right, Oscar said. Every move we make has to be legally defensible. Otherwise, we're just giving Brad ammunition. So what do we do? Isaac asked. Dennis looked at his son, exhausted, determined, fighting for his father when most kids would be playing video games. This is what he'd almost lost. This is what Brad and Marissa tried to take. We build an airtight case, Dennis said. Oscar talks to Wade Hughes about the audit. I start documenting everything. Every interaction with Brad, every warning sign I missed. And we prepare for war. War. Isaac's eyes lit up. Legal war, Oscar clarified. The kind fought in courtrooms and boardrooms. But also the kind fought in the court of public opinion, Dennis added. Brad destroyed my reputation. Time to return the favor. Oscar raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? Dennis pulled up his contacts, finding a name he hadn't used in years. I know a financial journalist. Christoph McNeil. He specializes in corporate fraud. If we can feed him enough breadcrumbs about Brad's history, the failed startup, the lawsuit. That's playing dirty, Oscar said, but he was smiling. Brad started this fight. I'm going to finish it. Dennis stood. But first, I need to deal with Marissa. The smile faded from Isaac's face. Dad, Mom's part of this. The recordings. I know, son. But she's also my wife. And your mother. I need to understand how deep this goes. Dennis looked at Oscar. Can you arrange a meeting? Somewhere neutral, with you present? I can try. But Dennis, if she's working with Brad, then I need to know exactly what I'm up against. Dennis's jaw set. 15 years of marriage doesn't disappear overnight. Either Marissa's a victim of Brad's manipulation, or she's a willing participant. Either way, I need to hear it from her. Oscar nodded slowly. I'll set it up. But I'm going to advise you to record the conversation. For your protection. Do it. Dennis looked at his watch. 4:30 a.m. In a few hours, Chicago would wake up. The news cycle would churn. His mugshot would circulate. Brad and Marissa would think they'd won. They had no idea the fight was just beginning. Isaac, Dennis said, go home. Get some sleep. I want to help. You already have. More than you know. Dennis pulled his son into a hug. But I need you rested and ready. This is going to be a long fight. Isaac hugged back fiercely. We're going to win, Dad. Right. Dennis thought about everything he'd lost, everything at stake. His career, his reputation, his family. But looking at his son, he felt something he hadn't felt since the arrest, hope. Yeah, kid. We're going to win. Chapter 5. The cracks appear. Dennis sat across from Marissa in Oscar's conference room 48 hours later. His wife looked tired, makeup unable to hide the circles under her eyes. She wouldn't meet his gaze. Thank you for coming, Oscar began. I'm only here because the court required it, Marissa said coldly. For the custody arrangement. Dennis felt that land. Isaac's with me. For now. Marissa finally looked at him. Until the trial. Then we'll see. Oscar cleared his throat. Mrs. Bowers, my client wants to discuss the allegations against him. Specifically, your testimony about his supposed gambling problem. It's not supposed. Dennis has been betting on sports for years. That's a lie, Dennis said quietly. Is it? Marissa pulled out her phone, showing screenshots of betting apps and transactions. I found these on your tablet. Dennis stared at the doctored evidence. The screenshots were convincing. His name, his accounts, thousands in losses. All fabricated. Brad gave you these, Dennis said. Marissa hesitated, just for a second. Brad found them. He was worried about you. Brad planted them. Dennis leaned forward. Just like he planted the money in my desk. Just like he's been manipulating security footage and financial records for months. He's setting me up, Marissa. That's insane. Is it? Oscar interjected. Mrs. Bowers, are you aware your cousin has a history of corporate fraud? That his previous company went bankrupt amid allegations of embezzlement. Marissa's face paled. That was dismissed. The lawsuit was settled for $2.3 million, Oscar finished. Money Brad doesn't have anymore. Money he's trying to steal from Holloway Industries using your husband as a scapegoat. No. But Marissa's voice lacked conviction. Brad wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Dennis pressed. Wouldn't lie? Wouldn't manipulate? Marissa, he's been coming to our house for months, getting close to you, turning you against me. Did you ever ask yourself why? Because he cares about our family. Unlike you. But the fire had gone out of her words. Dennis made a decision. He pulled out his phone and played a portion of Isaac's recording, Brad's voice crystal clear. Dennis is going to fall, Marissa. The Kellerman deal has complications. When it all comes apart, you can divorce him, take everything, and we can be together. Marissa's hand flew to her mouth. Where did you get that? Our son, Dennis said. He's been recording because he knew something was wrong. He was trying to protect both of us. Isaac can't. That's illegal. So is conspiracy to commit fraud, Oscar said. Mrs. Bowers, that recording proves Brad Whitt planned to frame your husband months ago. And your voice is on there too, discussing the plan. I didn't. I wasn't. Marissa stood, pacing. He said it would be better for us. That you were never there, never cared. That Isaac deserved better. And you believed him? You were never home. Marissa's composure cracked. 15 years, Dennis. 15 years of coming second to your career. Brad was there. He listened. He made me feel valued. So you helped him destroy me? I didn't think. Marissa sank back into her chair. He said the money was yours. That you'd been hiding assets. That proving it would help with the divorce settlement. And you didn't question why your cousin needed you to lie about a gambling problem? Why he needed you to back up claims of embezzlement? Marissa was crying now. I was angry. So angry at you. And Brad was. He made it seem reasonable. Like we were just exposing what you'd already done. Dennis felt a mixture of betrayal and pity. His wife had been manipulated, yes. But she'd also chosen to believe the worst of him. Chosen to participate in his destruction. How deep are you in this? Oscar asked gently. Did you know about the money in Dennis's desk before it was found? No. Brad told me after. He said it proved you were hiding assets. Did you know he was manipulating company records? No. I thought. God. I thought you'd actually stolen from Kellerman. Brad showed me the transfers, said the audit would prove it. The transfers Brad made using company systems, Dennis said. Marissa, he's been setting this up for months. Every piece of evidence against me was fabricated by him. The gambling, the embezzlement, all of it. Marissa looked at Oscar. The recording. If Brad planned this, if I was part of it, am I going to jail? That depends, Oscar said, on how cooperative you are now. Dennis watched his wife process the situation. She was calculating, he realized. Weighing her options. What do you want, she asked. The truth, Dennis said. Everything Brad told you. Everything you did. On record. In exchange for what? Immunity from prosecution, Oscar said. And joint custody of Isaac. Full custody, Marissa countered. No. Dennis's voice was steel. You conspired to frame me for a crime. You tried to take everything from me. The only reason I'm offering anything is because you're still Isaac's mother. Joint custody or nothing. Marissa was quiet for a long time. Finally, I need to talk to my lawyer. You have 24 hours, Oscar said. After that, we go to the prosecutor with what we have. And Marissa? Brad's going down. The only question is whether you go down with him. After Marissa left, Dennis sat in the conference room feeling hollow. His marriage was over. That much was clear. But there was still a chance to salvage something from the wreckage. She'll flip on Brad, Oscar said. She's scared and self-interested. Give her a day to realize she's facing jail time, and she'll give us everything. And if she doesn't, then we use the recording and the evidence Isaac gathered to build our case without her. It's harder, but not impossible. Dennis's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging, or Isaac gets hurt. His blood ran cold. Oscar. The lawyer read the message, face darkening. Brad's getting desperate. That's good news for us. Desperate people make mistakes. He just threatened my son, which is a crime. Screenshot that, save it. We're building a paper trail. Oscar pulled out his phone. I'm calling the prosecutor. This escalates everything. Wait. Dennis stared at the message. Something about it felt wrong. Brad's smart. He wouldn't threaten Isaac directly. He knows that would turn Marissa against him completely. Unless Marissa isn't the one he's worried about anymore. Oscar's eyes narrowed. Dennis, where is Isaac right now? Dennis dialed his son immediately. It rang 4 times before Isaac answered, voice hushed. Dad? I'm at Mom's house. She wanted to talk. Get out of there. Now. What? What? A door opened in the background. Brad's voice. Isaac, your mother wants to see you in the living room. Dad, I have to go. Isaac, listen to me. Don't let Brad separate you from other people. Stay where there are witnesses. But the line had gone dead. Dennis was already moving. Oscar, call the police. Send them to my house. Dennis, wait. That's my son. He was out the door and in his car before Oscar could stop him. The drive to his house took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Dennis called Isaac 6 times. No answer. He pulled into the driveway to find Brad's Mercedes there. Lights on in the living room. Dennis burst through the front door to find Marissa, Isaac, and Brad sitting calmly on the couch. Dennis, Marissa said, surprised. What are you? Isaac, come here. His son stood, confused. Dad, we were just talking. Mom says she wants to work things out. Dennis looked at Brad, who smiled blandly. Family meeting. Nothing sinister. You threatened my son. I did no such thing. Brad pulled out his phone. I've been here for the past hour. Marissa can confirm. He can, Marissa said quietly. Dennis, you're being paranoid. Dennis showed her the text. This came from an unknown number 20 minutes ago. Brad glanced at it, unconcerned. Could be anyone. You've made a lot of enemies with your accusations. Get out of my house. Actually, Brad said pleasantly, this is Marissa's house too. And she invited me. Dennis looked at his wife. Marissa, I called Brad to discuss your meeting with Mr. Francis, she said. He's been helpful. And there it was. The calculation Dennis had seen in her eyes. Marissa had chosen sides, and it wasn't his. Isaac, you're coming with me. Dad, now. Isaac looked between his parents, then Brad. Finally, he grabbed his backpack and walked to Dennis. This isn't over, Brad said. The prosecutor has enough evidence to put you away for years. No amount of paranoid theories will change that. We'll see, Dennis said. Come on, son. Outside. In the car, Isaac was quiet until they'd driven 2 blocks. Then, Dad, Uncle Brad said something weird. What? He said you'd try to turn me against Mom. That you'd make up lies because you're desperate. Isaac looked at his father. But I saw the recordings. I know what he did. So why would Mom believe him? Dennis had no answer for that. The woman he'd married, the mother of his child, was either completely manipulated or completely complicit. He didn't know which was worse. Your mom's confused, Dennis finally said. Brad's very convincing. Mom's smart, though. She should see through him. Love makes people stupid sometimes. Dennis pulled over, looking at his son. Isaac, I need you to promise me something. Stay away from Brad. Don't be alone with him. Don't trust him. I don't. But Dad, what if Mom chooses him? What if she really believes his lies? Dennis had been wondering the same thing. If Marissa testified for Brad, if she sold the gambling story, if she played the sympathetic wife betrayed by a criminal husband, the jury might believe her. Then we fight anyway, Dennis said. Because truth matters, even when it's hard. The recording can't be used in court. We got it illegally. Then what do we do? Dennis thought about the board meeting Wade Hughes was arranging, the independent audit Oscar was pushing for, the journalist who was sniffing around Brad's past. They had pieces, but not enough. Not yet. We keep digging, Dennis said. And we pray Brad makes a mistake. His phone rang. Oscar's number. The prosecutor wants to meet tomorrow, Oscar said. They're offering a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison in exchange for testimony about the Kellerman fraud. Tell them to go to hell. Dennis, I didn't do this, Oscar. I'm not pleading guilty to Brad's crimes. 5 years versus potentially 20 if we lose at trial. You need to consider it. No. Dennis looked at Isaac. My son believes in me. That's worth more than a plea deal. Oscar was quiet for a moment. Then we'd better be ready. Because this is about to get a lot worse before it gets better. Chapter 6. The Turning Point. Wade Hughes arranged the emergency board meeting for Saturday morning. Dennis wasn't invited. He was suspended, after all, but Oscar had a contact in the building who agreed to record the proceedings. They listened from Oscar's office as Wade laid out the evidence of systematic security manipulation. Marshall Holloway, to his credit, seemed genuinely shocked. Brad Witt, however, was smooth as ever. These allegations are concerning. Brad's voice came through the speaker. But they're based on illegally obtained evidence. We can't make corporate decisions based on hacked servers. The evidence suggests someone has been manipulating our security systems for months, Wade countered. Whether the discovery was legal or not, we have a fiduciary duty to investigate. I agree, Brad said, which is why I've already authorized an internal audit. Oscar and Dennis exchanged glances. He's getting ahead of it, Oscar muttered. An internal audit isn't enough, Wade pressed. Not when the CFO is potentially involved. We need external auditors. Independent. No connection to Holloway Industries. That's expensive and time-consuming, Marshall said. And with the Kellerman merger, is potentially compromised by fraudulent accounting, Wade finished. Marshall, if there's even a chance our financial records have been manipulated, Kellerman has grounds to sue. We need to get ahead of this. The debate continued for an hour. Finally, Marshall agreed to hire external auditors over Brad's carefully worded objections. The meeting adjourned with orders for full cooperation from all departments. Dennis allowed himself a moment of hope. The audit will find everything. Brad's edits, the fake accounts, all of it. If he hasn't covered his tracks by then, Oscar cautioned. He has until Monday when the auditors arrive. That's 48 hours to delete evidence. Isaac copied the server data. Even if Brad erases it, we have backups. Illegally obtained backups we can't use in court, Oscar reminded him. Unless the auditors find the same evidence independently. Dennis paced the office. Brad knows about the board meeting. He'll assume someone leaked information. He's going to move fast. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Brad's about to run. Take the money and disappear before the audit exposes him. We should tell the prosecutor. No. Dennis's mind was racing. If Brad runs, we lose our chance to prove the frame job. We need him here, under pressure, making mistakes. How do you propose we keep him here? Dennis pulled out his phone, finding Christoph McNeil's number. By giving him something more important to worry about than running. The journalist answered on the first ring. Christoph McNeil. Mr. McNeil, we spoke years ago about the Richardson acquisition. This is Dennis Bowers. The embezzler? This is a surprise. I'm not an embezzler. But I have a story for you about corporate fraud at Holloway Industries. Interested? I'm listening. Dennis laid it out. Brad's history, the failed startup, the settlement, the systematic manipulation of Holloway's systems. He mentioned the offshore accounts, the planted evidence, the conspiracy. He carefully avoided mentioning illegally obtained information, focusing on public records and circumstantial evidence. Christoph was quiet when Dennis finished. That's explosive if you can prove it. But right now, it sounds like a desperate man trying to deflect blame. The board just authorized an independent audit. When that comes back showing Brad manipulated everything, you'll want to be the one who broke the story first. Or I'll be the one who gave a platform to a criminal's lies. Your call. But when this blows up, remember I offered you the exclusive. Dennis hung up. Oscar raised an eyebrow. That was risky. If he publishes. He won't. Not yet. But he'll start digging. And when journalists start asking questions, it puts pressure on Brad to look innocent. Or it makes him run faster. Maybe. Dennis checked his watch. Either way, we've got 48 hours until the auditors arrive. We need to use that time. His phone buzzed. A text from Isaac. Mom wants me to stay with her this weekend. Says it's important. Dennis felt alarm bells ring. Marissa's trying to get Isaac away from me. Could be innocent. Or Brad wants leverage. Dennis texted back. Tell your mom you're staying with me. Non-negotiable. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then Isaac. She's really upset. Says you're being unreasonable. Dennis called his son. Isaac answered quietly. Dad. She's crying. Saying you're trying to turn me against her. Put her on speaker. I can't, she'll know. Isaac, this is important. I need to hear what's happening there. A pause. Then muffled voices, Marissa and Brad, arguing about something. Dennis strained to hear. Told you this would happen. Brad's voice angry. He's paranoid and controlling. He's Isaac's father, Marissa countered. We can't just. Can't what? You're the custodial parent right now. You have every right to have your son with you. The custody arrangement says weekends with Dennis. Arrangements can change, especially when there's concern for the child's safety. Dennis's grip tightened on the phone. Brad was playing the long game. Turn Marissa completely. Use her to get full custody of Isaac. Isolate Dennis from the one person who believed in him. Isaac, Dennis said quietly. I need you to do exactly what I say. Tell your mother you'd like to stay there tonight. But you need to get some things from my apartment first. Dad, trust me. Tell her I agreed to let you stay, but you need your school books. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Dennis heard Isaac relay the message. Marissa's relief was audible. Okay, sweetie. That's good. Your father's being reasonable. Dennis ended the call and grabbed his keys. Oscar stood. What's the play? Brad wants Isaac close to control Marissa. Fine. But I'm not leaving my son in that house overnight where Brad can manipulate the situation. If you violate the custody arrangement. I'm not. Isaac will choose to come with me. Of his own free will. Because he's smart enough to see what's happening. Dennis drove to his old house, every instinct screaming danger. He'd spent 15 years making this place a home, and now it felt like enemy territory. Isaac was waiting on the porch, backpack ready. He climbed into the car without a word. You okay? Dennis asked. Mom and Uncle Brad are planning something. I heard them talking after you called. Something about the custody hearing on Monday. What about it? Uncle Brad said if Mom testifies about your gambling and anger issues, the judge will give her full custody. He said it's for my safety. Dennis's jaw clenched. I don't have anger issues. I know, Dad. But Uncle Brad's really good at making things sound reasonable. Mom believes him. What about you? Isaac looked at his father. I believe the evidence. And the evidence says Uncle Brad is a liar who's trying to destroy our family. Pride and fear warred in Dennis's chest. His son was brilliant, loyal, and now in the crosshairs of a desperate man. We're going somewhere safe, Dennis said. Somewhere Brad can't find us. Where? Dennis pulled out his phone, calling a number he'd never thought he'd use. His older brother, Scott Albright, answered after 3 rings. Dennis? Been a while. I need a favor, Scott. Big one. Chapter 7, The Gambit. Scott Albright lived in Milwaukee, 2 hours north of Chicago. He'd made his money in private security, the kind that operated in gray areas between legal and not. When Dennis and Isaac arrived at his warehouse loft, Scott greeted them with the same measuring look he'd given Dennis their whole lives. So you finally got yourself in real trouble, Scott said, leading them inside. Took long enough. The loft was sparse but secure. Cameras at every entrance, reinforced doors, a server setup that would make Isaac drool. This is temporary, Dennis said. Just until. Until what? Your wife stops trying to take your kid. The CFO stops framing you? Dennis, you're in a war. Start treating it like one. Isaac's eyes widened as Scott showed them the security setup. This is awesome. Don't encourage him, Dennis muttered. Scott smirked. Kid's got good instincts. Unlike his old man who thought playing by the rules would protect him. The law is a weapon, little brother. And right now, Brad's wielding it better than you. Scott pulled up a laptop. Oscar sent me the files. I've been digging into Brad's past. Want to know what I found? They gathered around the screen. Scott had dug deep. Financial records, legal documents, sealed court files that shouldn't have been accessible. Brad Witt didn't just run a failed startup, Scott began. He ran a Ponzi scheme. Took $20 million from investors, promised massive returns on a fake tech product, and spent it all on himself. The lawsuit was to recover assets. The $2.3 million settlement was pennies on the dollar. Jesus, Dennis breathed. Gets better. 3 of the investors who lost everything? 1 committed suicide. 1 had a heart attack from the stress. The 3rd, Scott pulled up a photo, is in a psychiatric facility. Brad destroyed these people and walked away with a settlement. Isaac stared at the screen. He's a sociopath. Textbook case, Scott agreed. No empathy, no remorse, excellent at manipulation. He picked your family because you were vulnerable. Absent father, lonely wife, trusting kid. Perfect targets. Dennis felt sick. How do we stop him? You already are. The audit, the recordings, the journalist. But Brad's going to see it coming. He's probably already planning his exit strategy. Which means he'll take whatever money he can grab and run. But not before he burns down everything in his path. Scott looked at Dennis seriously. He's threatened Isaac. He's turned your wife. He's destroyed your career. The question is, how far is he willing to go to protect himself? Dennis thought about the text message, Brad's coldness, the systematic destruction of Dennis's life. He'd kill to protect his freedom. Maybe. Which is why you need to strike first. Legally speaking. Oscar arrived an hour later with news. The prosecutor had been contacted by Christoph McNeil, asking about Brad's background. The journalist was digging, and the prosecutor was now looking at Brad's finances more closely. They still think you're guilty, Oscar said. But they're curious about Brad. That's progress. Not enough, Dennis said. We need proof they can't ignore. The audit starts Monday. That's our best shot. Brad has 48 hours to cover his tracks. We need to move faster. Dennis turned to Scott. You said Brad's planning an exit strategy. How would he move the money? Offshore accounts, probably. But he'd need to transfer it quickly once he knew he was caught. And that requires accessing his laptop. Isaac perked up. His laptop is on the company network. I still have access to the server. Not legally, Oscar warned. But if someone were to monitor network traffic, they might see suspicious activity, Scott said. And if that someone were a concerned citizen who noticed unusual data transfers, they might report it to the authorities. Dennis saw where this was going. We watch Brad's laptop. When he tries to move the money, we alert the authorities. Exactly. But you need to catch him in the act. Otherwise, it's just more illegally obtained evidence. How do we monitor his laptop without hacking it? Dennis asked. Scott grinned. You don't monitor the laptop. You monitor the network. The company has every right to watch their own data flow. And if I were to, say, offer my services as a security consultant helping investigate potential fraud, Marshall would never approve that, Dennis said. Wade Hughes would, Oscar countered. Especially if I explained the board member has concerns about data security given the allegations. It was risky, but it was also their best shot. Do it, Dennis said. Scott, you reach out to Wade through Oscar. Set up the network monitoring. Isaac, you help Scott understand the company's systems. Oscar, you keep the prosecutor interested in Brad. What are you going to do? Oscar asked. Dennis pulled out his phone, looking at Marissa's number. I'm going to have one final conversation with my wife. On the record, Dennis. She knows things. About Brad's plans, about the money, about everything. If I can get her to admit what she knows, even just in a conversation, she won't talk to you, Oscar said. Not with Brad poisoning her against you. She will if I make her think I'm giving up. Dennis started typing a message to Marissa. I'm going to tell her I'm ready to take the plea deal, that I want to discuss custody arrangements before I go to prison. That's dangerous, Scott warned. If Brad thinks you're broken, he might accelerate his timeline. Good. Let him get sloppy. Dennis hit send on the message. We've got 48 hours to catch him. Let's make them count. The next 24 hours were a blur. Scott set up network monitoring at Holloway Industries under the guise of security consulting. Isaac helped him understand the data flow, mapping Brad's typical activity patterns. Oscar kept the prosecutor engaged with carefully worded hints about Brad's past. And Dennis prepared for his meeting with Marissa. She agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop near the house. Dennis arrived early, setting up a recording device that Oscar had provided. Legal this time, since Illinois was a one-party consent state. Marissa looked tired when she arrived, older than she had a month ago. Thank you for meeting me, Dennis said. Oscar said you were considering the plea deal. I am. 5 years is better than 20. Dennis let defeat creep into his voice. But I need to know Isaac will be okay, that you'll take care of him. Marissa's expression softened. Of course I will. He's my son. With Brad's help. She stiffened. Brad cares about Isaac. Does he? Or does he care about controlling you? Dennis. Just tell me one thing, Marissa. Truthfully, did you know Brad was going to frame me? Before it happened. She was quiet for a long moment. I knew he had concerns about your financial behavior. Concerns he fabricated. I don't know that. Yes, you do. Dennis leaned forward. You heard him on that recording. You know he planned this. Just admit it. What does it matter? You're going to prison anyway. It matters because our son deserves to know the truth. About both of us. Dennis pulled out his phone, showing her the photo Scott had found. This is Richard Moss, one of Brad's investors. He committed suicide after losing his life savings to Brad's Ponzi scheme. Marissa paled. That's not. Brad said that was a misunderstanding. Brad lied. He's been lying to you from the start. About me, about his past, about everything. Stop. But her voice wavered. He's a con man, Marissa. A professional manipulator. And he used your loneliness, your anger at me, to destroy our family. You destroyed our family. The words burst out of her. You chose work over us every single day. Brad was just there. I know. And I'm sorry for that. Truly. Dennis felt the weight of 15 years of mistakes. But Marissa, Brad didn't seduce you to save you from a bad marriage. He seduced you to get close enough to frame me and steal from the company. You were a tool to him. We both were. Tears streamed down Marissa's face. He said he loved me. He loves money. And he's using you to get it. You're just trying to manipulate me now. I'm trying to save you. Because in 48 hours, when the independent audit reveals what Brad's done, you're going to be implicated too. Unless you cooperate. Marissa wiped her eyes. What do you want? The truth. Everything Brad told you. Everything you know about his plans. On the record. And in exchange? Oscar will talk to the prosecutor. Get you immunity. You testify against Brad. You walk away clean. And custody? Dennis hesitated. Joint custody. That's the best I can offer. Marissa looked at her coffee, at her hands, anywhere but at Dennis. Finally, I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the audit starts and all deals are off the table. She stood to leave, then paused. Dennis, did you really love me? Or was I just another box to check on your way up the corporate ladder? The question hurt because it was partly true. He'd loved her, yes, but he'd also taken her for granted, assumed she'd always be there while he chased success. I loved you, he said honestly, but I didn't cherish you the way I should have. That's on me. But what Brad did, that's on him, and he needs to pay for it. Marissa left without responding. Dennis sat alone, recording device still running, wondering if he'd done enough. Chapter 8, The Endgame. Sunday evening, Brad made his move. Scott's network monitoring detected massive data transfers from Brad's laptop to offshore servers. Millions of dollars moving through shell corporations and numbered accounts. Isaac watched the data flow, tracking each transaction. He's liquidating everything, Isaac said. Not just what he stole from Kellerman. Every account he's got access to. How much total? Dennis asked. Scott did the math. About $8 million. Most of it company funds he's been skimming for months. He's preparing to run. We need to call the police, Oscar said. Not yet, Dennis said. We need him to actually move the money. Otherwise, he can claim he was just reorganizing accounts, doing legitimate CFO work. They watched as Brad transferred funds through increasingly complex networks. Switzerland, Cayman Islands, Panama. Money laundering in real time. There, Isaac said, pointing to a final destination. Singapore. Non-extradition. That's where he's going. Dennis's phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. I'll do it. I'll testify against Brad. But you need to know, he bought plane tickets for tomorrow night. He's leaving. And he asked me and Isaac to come with him. Son of a bitch, Dennis breathed. He's trying to take my family with him. Did you agree? Oscar texted back on Dennis's behalf. I told him I needed to think about it. He's at the house now, packing. Says we need to leave before the audit reveals Dennis's crimes. He's going tonight, Scott said. Look at the transfers. He's moving everything now. He's not waiting for tomorrow. Dennis made a decision. Oscar, call the police. Tell them Brad Witt is in the process of committing wire fraud and money laundering. Give them the address. The evidence was obtained by a legitimate security consultant monitoring company network traffic. Scott's authorized to be there. It's legal. Scott was already on the phone with Wade Hughes, who authorized a formal report to law enforcement. Within minutes, Chicago PD was mobilizing. We need to get Isaac out of that house, Dennis said. On it, Oscar called Marissa. Mrs. Bowers, this is Oscar Francis. You need to get yourself and Isaac out of the house immediately. Police are en route to arrest Brad for fraud. Dennis grabbed his keys. I'm going there. That's a bad idea, Scott said. I don't care. That's my son. Dennis broke every traffic law getting to the house. He arrived as Brad was loading suitcases into his Mercedes. Marissa and Isaac stood on the porch, confused. Dennis, Brad said smoothly. Come to say goodbye? Where do you think you're going? Singapore. Business opportunity. I invited Marissa and Isaac to join me for an extended vacation. You mean fleeing the country with $8 million in stolen funds? Brad's smile didn't waver. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? The independent audit will have proof tomorrow. The police will have it tonight. Police? Brad laughed. Based on what evidence? Your paranoid theories. Sirens in the distance. Brad's expression finally changed, calculation replacing confidence. Marissa, get Isaac in the car. Now. No, Marissa said quietly. Brad turned to her. What? I said no. We're not going with you. Marissa, we discussed this. You discussed it. You lied to me. About everything. She walked to Dennis, pulling Isaac with her. He's right. You used us. Brad's mask cracked. The charming, helpful cousin disappeared, replaced by something cold and predatory. You stupid bitch. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? I was offering you a life. Real security, not Dennis's mediocre middle-class existence. With stolen money and lies, Dennis said. The sirens were closer. Brad looked between Dennis, Marissa, and the approaching police. Then he lunged for Isaac. Come on, kid. You're my insurance policy. Dennis moved without thinking, putting himself between Brad and his son. Brad's fist caught him in the jaw, snapping his head back. But Dennis had spent months angry, hurt, and looking for an outlet. He tackled Brad, and they went down hard on the driveway. Dad, Isaac yelled. Dennis pinned Brad, 15 years of rage pouring out. You tried to destroy my life. My family. For what? Money. It's always about money. Brad spat blood. You're just too stupid to realize it. Wake up at 40 with nothing to show but a mortgage and a failed marriage. I took control of my life. You destroyed innocent people. Collateral damage. Like you. Police cars screamed into the driveway. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. Hands up. Both of you. Dennis released Brad, hands raised. They were separated, cuffed, questioned. Detective Dunlap arrived, taking in the scene with a weary expression. Mr. Bowers. Funny seeing you here. Bradwood is committing wire fraud as we speak, Dennis said. Check his laptop. Check the network transfers. $8 million to offshore accounts in the last 2 hours. Dunlap looked at Brad. That true. Dennis is delusional. I'm the CFO. I manage company funds. That's my job. On a Sunday night. To personal offshore accounts. Dunlap pulled out his phone, checking something. I just got a call from the FBI. They've been tracking suspicious money movements from Holloway Industries. Funny how they all lead to accounts in your name, Mr. Witt. Brad's expression finally showed fear. I want my lawyer. Yeah, I bet you do. Dunlap turned to Dennis. Mr. Bowers, your lawyer sent over some interesting information this afternoon. Security footage, financial records, testimony from your wife. Normally, I'd question the sources. But when the FBI confirms active money laundering, he uncuffed Dennis. You're free to go. For now. As they cuffed Brad and read him his rights, he locked eyes with Dennis. This isn't over. I'll make a deal. Testify that you were in on it too. Good luck with that, Dennis said. You're the only one whose laptop was used. The only one who had access to edit security systems. The only one with a history of fraud. Face it, Brad. You're going to prison for a long time. They put Brad in the back of a patrol car. As it pulled away, Dennis felt the weight of the last month finally lift. Marissa approached carefully. I'm sorry. For all of it. Dennis looked at her. The woman he'd married. The mother of his son. The stranger she'd become. We're going to need counseling. Both of us. And therapy for Isaac. Joint custody? Joint custody. But I want to be involved, Marissa. Really involved. Not just weekends and holidays. She nodded. I'd like that. Isaac hugged Dennis fiercely. We did it, Dad. We won. Dennis held his son, feeling pride and relief and profound exhaustion. Yeah, kid. We won. But as he looked at his damaged family, his destroyed career, his shattered life, he wondered what exactly they'd won. Justice, maybe. The truth, certainly. But the scars would remain long after Brad went to prison. Chapter 9. Rebuilding. The independent audit confirmed everything. Brad had stolen over $9 million from Holloway Industries through systematically manipulating accounts over 8 months. The Kellerman irregularities were entirely his doing. The security footage was edited. Every piece of evidence against Dennis was fabricated. The prosecutor dropped all charges with an official apology. Christoph McNeil wrote a scathing expose about Brad's history and the Holloway Industries fraud. Brad's bail was denied. He was considered a flight risk. His trial was set for 6 months out. Marshall Holloway called Dennis personally. We want you back. VP of Operations, as promised. Full back pay for your suspension and a formal apology from the board. Dennis sat in Oscar's office, considering. I appreciate it, Marshall. But I need time. Take what you need. The job will be waiting. After Marshall hung up, Oscar raised an eyebrow. You're turning down the VP position you worked 15 years for. I'm postponing it. Isaac needs me present, not just physically around. Marissa and I are trying to rebuild trust. And honestly, Dennis leaned back. I realized something during all this. I was so focused on climbing the ladder, I forgot why I started climbing in the first place. To provide for my family. But what good is providing if there's no family to provide for? Wise words, Oscar said. So what will you do? Consult, maybe. Set my own hours. Be there for Isaac's robotics competitions and Marissa's art shows. Actually have dinner together. Sounds nice. It does, doesn't it? Dennis smiled. Funny how it took losing everything to realize what mattered. 3 months later, Dennis stood in a courtroom watching Brad's trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, security footage, testimony from Marissa, forensic analysis of the money trail. The jury took 4 hours to convict on all counts. Bradwood was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. As they led him away, Brad looked at Dennis one last time. No words. Just a look of pure hatred that Dennis met with calm resolution. Outside the courthouse, Marissa waited with Isaac. How do you feel? She asked. Relieved. Vindicated. Empty. Dennis shrugged. How about you? Guilty. For believing him. For participating. You testified. You made it right. Did I? Marissa looked at her hands. I helped destroy your reputation, Dennis. Some people will always believe you were guilty. Let them. I know the truth. So does Isaac. So do you. That's enough. They walked to the parking garage together, an uncertain family finding their way back to each other. Isaac held both their hands. Dad, Mr. McNeil wants to interview you for a follow-up article about corporate fraud victims. I'll think about it. And Mom's gallery is showing her paintings next month. You'll come, right? Dennis looked at Marissa. I wouldn't miss it. She smiled, tentative, but genuine. I'd like that. 6 months after Brad's conviction, Dennis sat in Isaac's robotics lab, watching his son program a complex AI system. At 14, Isaac was already being courted by university programs. But for now, he was just a kid building robots with his dad. How's it going? Dennis asked. Good. I'm teaching it pattern recognition. Isaac looked up. Like what you taught me. About seeing the systems beneath the surface. And what do you see? That people are just systems too. Predictable if you know how they work. Isaac paused. Uncle Brad was predictable. Greedy, narcissistic, desperate. Once we understood that, stopping him was just a matter of letting him be himself. Dennis felt a chill. His son was brilliant, but there was a coldness there sometimes that worried him. Isaac, Brad was a bad man, but not everyone is. Some people are just people. Flawed, trying their best, making mistakes. Like you and Mom. Like us. We made a lot of mistakes, but we're trying to fix them. Are you? Or are you just going through the motions because it's easier than divorce? The question was too perceptive. Dennis and Marissa were trying to reconcile, but it was hard. The trust was shattered. The love was complicated by resentment and guilt. I don't know, Dennis admitted. But I'm trying to figure it out. One day at a time. Isaac nodded. That's all anyone can do, I guess. They worked in comfortable silence until Marissa appeared in the doorway. Dinner's ready. They ate together, the three of them, around a table, actually talking. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward silences and unspoken tensions. But it was real. After Isaac went to bed, Dennis and Marissa sat on the porch. I got the final settlement from the company, Dennis said. Back pay, plus damages for wrongful suspension. It's substantial. That's good. I want to put most of it in trust for Isaac. And therapy for all of us. I think that's wise. Marissa was quiet for a moment. Dennis, I need to ask. Do you think we can really fix this? Our marriage. Dennis looked at the woman he'd married 16 years ago. He still loved her in a way. But they'd both changed. The people they were now might not be compatible anymore. I don't know, he said honestly. But I think we owe it to ourselves to try. Not for Isaac, he's resilient. For us. To see if there's anything worth saving. And if there's not, then we divorce like adults. Co-parent Isaac. Move forward as friends instead of enemies. Marissa reached for his hand. I can live with that. 1 year after Brad's arrest, Dennis stood in the conference room at Holloway Industries. He'd finally accepted the VP position, but on his terms, flexible hours, remote work options, mandatory family time blocked on his calendar. Marshall introduced him to the executive team. Wade Hughes shook his hand warmly. Welcome back, Dennis. You earned this. Dennis looked around the room. The success he'd chased for 15 years, finally his. But it felt different now. Smaller, somehow. Because he'd learned what really mattered. That night, he went home to the new apartment he shared with Isaac. Marissa had decided to live separately. They were trying to date again, rebuild from scratch. It was slow, awkward, uncertain. But it was honest. Isaac was working on a new project, a security system that was unhackable. For people like us, Dad. So no one can frame them. Dennis hugged his son. You're going to change the world, kid. Maybe. But right now, I'm just happy we're okay. We're more than okay. We won. Isaac smiled. Yeah, we did. Later, alone in his room, Dennis thought about the journey. He'd lost his career, his reputation, his marriage. But he'd gained something more valuable, perspective, purpose, a real relationship with his son. Brad had tried to destroy him and had almost succeeded. But in the process, Brad had inadvertently given Dennis the wake-up call he desperately needed. Sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what's worth keeping. Dennis pulled out his phone, texting Marissa, dinner tomorrow? Just us? Her response came quickly. I'd like that. Small steps. Honest efforts. Real growth. That was victory. Not the VP title or the money or Brad's conviction. Victory was being present, being real, being the man his son believed him to be. And as Dennis drifted off to sleep, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. The battle was over. The war was won. And finally, Dennis Bowers could breathe again. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.